My name is Katrina McCullough, founder of Whole Family ADHD. We work with parents of children who have ADHD to overcome struggles and stigmas and form a more cohesive family unit. I've had several people ask me to clarify what I mean when I use the word triggers, and I thought this was a really great opportunity because there probably is some interpretation when using that word. And I'm about to start a whole series on triggers, both in parents and in children. So I think this is a fantastic opportunity before I kick off the video series to level set what I mean when I'm talking about triggers. So a trigger in general is an event that occurs that throws you off your emotional center. You have a reaction to something that impacts your senses. It could be via something you hear or smell or touch or taste that disrupts your thought patterns. For the sake of these videos, most of these triggers are going to be centered around what you see and what you hear. And they're going to be things that throw you off and make you feel what we consider the negative emotions: angry, frustrated, sad, lonely, neglected, etc. I have heard, and I myself have used the word trigger in two very different ways. The first trigger has become a popular word in our culture when we experience something that triggers us. In that context, we call them triggers because they tap into a stored emotion in your subconscious caused by a memory, usually of a traumatic event. So I feel like I have to define trauma. When many of us think of trauma, we think of a major traumatic event, often resulting in what we now know as post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. What many of us don't or didn't know is that a trauma can be something that happened to you, near you, around you that makes you feel unsafe, unworthy, unloved. It can be a single event or a series of events. It can be something seemingly innocuous or relatively benign, especially when we're kids. When we're trying to make sense of the world and we're categorizing our experiences all the time without the tools yet to even understand that we're doing that. And over time, these little traumas create these grooves in your subconscious, and they just kind of hide out there until you see, hear, touch, taste, or smell something that bumps right into that groove and triggers that memory and jumpstarts that negative emotion. It happens automatically and instantaneously unless we do the work we need to do to smooth out those grooves so they can't be bumped into quite so easily. That sounds easy. We know it's not. That's why there are so many professionals that specialize in trauma. These grooves can really calcify over time. So we encourage everyone to align yourself with a professional who can guide you through it. But another context for the word trigger is one that is more under our immediate control, and those are the physical things in our lives that we do or don't do that make it hard for our brain to function as the well-oiled machine it can be. By doing or not doing certain things for our physical and mental health, we can allow ourselves to be triggered by seemingly harmless things. In this case, the emotion is usually anger and frustration. Something isn't going the way we want it to, and because we haven't set our internal mechanics up for success, we slip easily into anger and frustration. For example, in kids, it comes across as a temper tantrum. In parents, it's yelling and overreacting. So we'll start with this definition, and I love analogies, so you're going to see a lot of my videos will leverage analogies. For this category of triggers, I'm going to call them speed bumps. Speed bumps are where you're going along and boom, you hit a bump in the road and something kind of throws you for a jolt. Examples of what cause speed bumps are things like hunger, lack of sleep, not enough self-care, long days at work, sitting in bad traffic, things that wear down our willpower and our ability to remain emotionally centered. The thing about speed bumps is there is usually a sign in front of them, and you have a little warning. And when you've gone over a speed bump 1 or 2 times, you know it's there. You can plan for a speed bump. You can be prepared for a speed bump. You can even avoid a speed bump. You can take a whole other road altogether. Hunger, lack of sleep, lack of self-care, having to sit in traffic, these are the kinds of things that can be relatively common in our lives and that we have the ability over time to plan for. A good night's sleep. You can get a better night's sleep. You are in control of that at least some of the time. We get it. And those nights you don't get a good night's sleep, you know you're susceptible to being triggered. That is what we mean by a sign in front of your speed bump. You can choose to go slower that day. Ask for compassion from your family. Say no more and do less. Eating well, for example. Many of us can eat healthy. For the most part, that is in our control. And those days where you haven't had a chance to eat, or you're eating as you're racing around, you know, once again, you're more susceptible to being triggered. We have a whole video on food for children in regards very specifically to this kind of trigger. And for self-care, you can advocate for your self-care. You can begin to create space in your family for you time. We can help you with that. Speed bumps are also things that your children or significant other or family do that constantly trigger you. Leaving clothes laying around, complaining about homework, taking 2 hours to do a 20-minute task. And the reason they're speed bumps is because you know they're going to happen, and you can begin to plan accordingly for how it makes you feel and how you react. Not always easy, trust me, I get you. But it can be within your control. You may not be able to avoid them, but you can go over them softly. We can help with that as well. So in future videos, you will know what we mean when we say that hunger is the trigger or being tired is the trigger. It's a speed bump. It may not draw on some hidden trauma. It just jumpstarts the feeling of frustration because your brain or your child's brain is overtaxed and not properly fueled. The next trigger analogy is a little more unplanned and extreme, and for that I'm using the analogy of a tire blowout. You're on a freeway and your tire blows. You usually don't get a warning that that is going to happen, and it is a significant pendulum swing of emotion. This may be a reaction that you have during a conversation with a family member, maybe the way your kids talk to you, especially if they do something for the first time. Maybe if you've gotten a very negative reaction from your child's teacher, someone is rude or condescending at work. Maybe you just saw something that caught you off guard on social media. That is an event that hit a groove and triggered a memory of a trauma and made you instantly feel those associated negative emotions. So what do we do when that happens? In my experience, we may instantly try to squash the event, right? We want the thing triggering us to go away, to stop, to disappear, to be different, to change, to act the way we want it to act so that it will untrigger us and make us feel safe. We want to control the event, but not our emotions. And the reason why I like this analogy is because in an actual circumstance where you might have a tire blowout, the best thing that you can do is take your foot off the gas and steer into whichever way your car is going. Otherwise, you risk causing a massive accident. Similarly, that tire blowout trigger reaction is actually a chemical reaction in your brain. You have neurotransmitters firing and you go into fight or flight mode. Similar to what you need to do with a tire blowout, in that moment, the best thing to do is step off the gas. Pause, take a step back. You don't have to fight or flee, you can allow. Allow the neurochemicals to finish their flow so you can get to the side of the road safely and figure out what to do next. We will have a lot more videos on that down the road. That's a subject unto itself. And in the meantime, there are so many resources out there that you can utilize to overcome the instant overwhelm of a trigger. So what happens if you step on the gas during these moments in your life? If you give in to reacting in your current uncentered emotional state when you're having one of those tire blowout triggers? It can have lasting impacts in your life. Catastrophic impacts sometimes, right? You might say something you can't take back to your children. You might say something that gets you in trouble or even fired at work. You might create a rift with a family member that lasts a very long time. So again, the best thing for you to do in those moments is take your foot off the gas, take a step back, and find a way to let that chemical reaction in your body ride. The first step is even recognizing you've been triggered. That's a lesson in and of itself. The best indicator is anytime you feel an instantaneous negative emotion. If you feel the pendulum swing, that's a groove. Don't try to change the event, person, place, or thing. Just take a step back and give yourself at least 90 seconds to recenter. Easier said than done. Again, we get it. But knowing is half the battle. And then once you're through that emotional triggered swing state, the next best thing to do is to find a way to unpack in yourself why that event caused such a negative triggering reaction. Because if you can identify why that caused such an intense reaction, you can eventually turn a tire blowout type of reaction into a speed bump. And again, speed bumps are things that we can either go over lightly so they don't make much of an impact or avoid altogether. So as I said, we're going to be doing a lot of videos on triggers as well as tips and tricks videos, but now we're all aligned. In future videos, it will help to categorize these triggers as speed bumps or tire blowouts. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Visit us on our website at www.wholefamilyadhd to learn about our one-on-one coaching for parents with children who have ADHD and to register for future workshops. And check us out on Facebook. We look forward to meeting you and your pack real soon.